hard and very difficult to avoid debt. And that is because, especially when we start out in life, we have so many things that we need to pay for. We might need a home, we might need a car. So it's very hard to avoid debt. But I think it's very important to early on determine your relationship to debt, because there's certain productive, good debt, and then there's certain debt that's really, really bad for you. Good debt is debt where you actually invest in your future. Let's use an example. That would be where you take out a loan to pay for your studies. Why is that good? Well, it sets you up for the rest of your life. It's going to make a huge difference to your earnings potential in your future. So something like borrowing money to pay for your studies would be good debt. Borrowing on a home to buy a home is also not bad debt, but it is quite important that you really make sure that you can afford the amount that you borrow. You need to make sure that you can afford the rates and the taxes and everything else that goes with buying a house, and that you need to pay that off as soon as you can. Short-term debt is really, really bad for you, because that is where you pay the highest form of interest. And interest is what in the long run will prevent you from being able to save. So let's use some examples. Short-term debt, bad debt would be where you have a clothing account. That's probably one of the worst that you can have. Or where you borrow money to buy furniture or appliances. And the problem with that is that often if you don't pay off that debt as soon as you can, especially on a clothing account, it's sometimes so easy to just make use of all the extra credit they give you. And if you don't pay that off diligently, you can easily end up paying double the amount that the item actually cost. Debt could be an investment. It could, for instance, be if you are a rep for a company and you need a car, then, buying a car on debt is really it's not a good investment. But it would be good because it's something that you need in order to be able to do your job. Again, I think it's important that you consider how much you can afford. And how much you can afford need to include the insurance on that car, the fact that there'll be maintenance, tires, for instance, and of course the fuel that you need to pay every month. So with short-term debt as well, make sure that you can afford it and make sure that you pay it off as quickly as you can, because the interest there is your enemy. I think the most important thing to remember about debt is that you can always pay it off sooner. And that would be the best thing that you can possibly do. For instance, on a home loan, a 20-year home loan, if you could only pay 500 Rand a month extra off, it firstly takes years off your payment period. And why that is positive is that you end up paying off your capital a lot sooner. Now you pay interest on capital, so the sooner you pay off your capital, the better. And then on top of that, it means that in the early years, when your interest payments are really, really high, you actually manage to pay off extra. And again, you limit the interest that you pay on that home over the period. So any debt, try and pay it off as soon as you can. If you manage to pay off your debt sooner, it's very important to get into a rhythm and to get into a discipline around it. Let's say you pay off 1,000 Rand a month extra. If you could continue with that 1,000 Rand post paying off your debt, and you could start saving that, you put yourself in a fantastic position for the future to actually build up some savings that in future you can use instead of having to actually take out debt to pay for certain items. And I think the most important thing to remember about debt in the long run is that the interest you pay on debt is the enemy to financial freedom. And at some point you need to cross that bridge from paying interest to start to earning interest.